Hey everybody, welcome to Garrett's Games of Geekiness. We are a long-running audio podcast and now a frequent video review podcast as well of board games. I'm Doug.
And I'm Shelley.
How you doing, honey bunch?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Today we have Galileo Galilei. This is for 1 to 4 players, ages 13 plus, and says 60 plus minutes on the box. It is a game of exploration of the stars. You are going to be one of the famous astronomers who discovered amazing things like Galileo, of course, but you're also having to deal with the Inquisition and the church who is fighting against knowledge and such at that time. So let's take a look at Galileo Galilei by Tomas Holek. Okay, so in Galileo Galilei, everybody has their player board. You also have one of the astronomers, and these astronomers are two-sided. It's suggested that you start with this side, which is the same for everyone, but then you can add in the advanced version, and we'll talk about what these do, a power that each one of the astronomers specifically has. Now, let's talk a little bit about here the game board. We have the main board. We have these things that we are going to be observing. We have major observations, which are the planets or, some meteor showers and stuff. And then each of the cards also has constellations that you can observe too. So the primary action for points that you're going to be doing is you're going to be doing these major and minor observations. And you're going to be doing that by using these dice that we have. Everybody starts with one of each of the 3 color dice. You'll notice that to do a constellation observation requires only 1 color of die, so a 3 in yellow here or a 5 in red here. But the major observations all require a blending of at least 2 dice. So this is green, so yellow and blue make green, and you're going to have to use at least 2 dice to do that.
You can only store 4. So.
And you can only store 4. And you can have up to 3 of one particular color. All right? So that's the observations. Now, how does all of this work? Well, on your player board, you see you've got this telescope that rotates. And on your turn, starting with the telescope in this resting position, you are going to move the telescope 1, 2, or 3 spots, having these action tiles that are in this arc. Those action tiles have on them the ones that are mobile, they have usually one of 2 options on them. And then you also have an option that is above that, and you can do the fixed option or the movable option or options, whichever order that you want. But you have to finish all of the option before you move on to the other one. So for example, you can see here and here, this is do an observation, either one big observation, which would take a card, or 2 of the constellations, which you do by using the dice and placing one of your constellation tokens, which is here in this row, and you place those out. So that's one of the possible actions that you can do. Whenever you do a major constellation, so say I had 3 each in yellow and blue, I'd be spending my dice, okay?
And they don't have to be the same. They can be 1 and 5.
So I'm pointing at this observation, say I had that. There they are. Yeah, it could be a 1 and a 5.
Yeah.
And I've got 6 now, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to score 5 points, and I'm also going to have to deal with some Inquisition, which we'll talk about in a minute. But this card then goes sideways and becomes part of your library, where you've got these books and you can move books along to also get actions over here. These dice, though, are gone and they go back to the pool. The other possibilities that you have, of course, are raising all of one particular color of dice, raising 1 die up 2, advancing in the university. So the university here is in-game stuff as well as end-game scoring. So along this part of the university, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 goals for the end game that you've got. And so however far up you get these, you get the resources or the actions that are in the tan, but then you also get, at the end of the game, 1, 2, or 3 points based on how many times you do the action that you've got. Okay, so that's a way of scoring points and getting up to the top. There's no single person can only get to the top or anything like that. No, you've got that. And then over here, this is during the game, you check to see if you have achieved these things. So like the ones on either end are fixed, whereas these two are the other sides of these. So these come in here, and these are all variable during the game. These are even two-sided. So you're flipping them over and you're setting that up. So that adds a lot of variety to the game. These, the first one is if you have done 2 comets, 2 major observations, and 2 constellations. Talk about comets in a minute. This would be having 6 inquisitors on your board. This would be doing the improvements, which Shelley's going to talk about. And then this would be getting to the top of 2 of the university tracks. As soon as you do that, you're going to send, so say I had done that, gotten to the top of these 2, getting all the resources and stuff, I would place here, only 1 person can do that. That's worth 7 points. And then anybody else can get it worth 3 points, okay? So that's the way that works.
But you're also going to be getting your, however far you got times the multiplier. So.
Exactly. So it's a nice benefit.
As well, yeah.
Exactly. As you move along, one of the things that you can do, so that, the university movement looks like the university with an arrow pointing up. So that's how you'd move in here. The books, if it has the flag on it, you move all the way to the end, doing all of the actions on a particular row where you've read that book in its entirety. And then over here, there are 2 things that you can get and collect, and those are little quadrangles, okay, as well as, if I'm pointing up here, do an improvement. Now, Shelley will talk a little bit about those improvements.
So basically, if you go to this spot, it's the only one that's not movable because all of these slide down, right, and slide over. But this is the one that's permanent part of the board. And it's often something you're going to want to do because you're going to want to get those triangles, as mentioned.
Yes, the little quadrants.
The quadrants, because they give you some good things. They allow you to get dice or to go up 3 in your books or, move your Inquisition.
We'll talk more about that in a minute.
A little bit, and get more of the comets, too.
These are all free actions that you can do anytime during your turn,
which is nice,
by spending 1, 2, 3, or 4 of these that you've collected.
And you will definitely be doing that quite a bit. And then what's nice is there's a little cheat sheet card that lets you know what's on the other side, but it is related to what's on the front. So, for example, the yellow, bump up your die 1 by yellow and go all the way down on your book on one of the rows. Obviously, it's going to have something to do with that on the other side, and it's go up 2.
All of your yellow dice get to go up 2, and that you're going to do.
Or you get one of those little, what do you call them?
Yeah, they're quadrant
squares.
Yeah.
And you get to go over on your book, and you get a victory point. So just a slightly better action on the other side.
Right.
But it is something you're trying to do because it helps you, obviously, to get better actions. But also sometimes that's something that's wanted for these end game scoring as well.
Yeah, so for example, this action in the university, you would be, if you're the first to have done 5 improvements, then you can get in here and get those 7 points for the end of the game.
Right.
Now, the way an action or a turn happens is you're moving your telescope 1 to 3 spaces. So for example, if it were here, I could go 1, and then it comes down to here, not where these X's are, to 3. So that would be the spots that I could move it to, okay? I would do my action, choosing the order and choosing which of the 2, if there's 2 possibilities. Then, once I've done that, I move this out a little, and this is a little bit fiddly, but it's okay.
It has a place to stop here, but you can more easily slide it out.
Right, but you move this out, and so at the end of my turn, the first thing I'm doing is I'm moving this down, and all of these now slide up, so that these 2 that were down here in the not able to be used area are starting to move back into that. Then I look, and one of the things that you can do as an action is take your comet off the board and put it onto the actual game board. And now this counts as initially 1 bonus for
one
discount for buying or paying for a card. So, for example, let's take this and say I had a 3 and a 2 instead. I could still get this 6 because I could spend and use the comet to get that last 6th point. Then this flips over and now gives you a 2 discount for going forward. So again, maybe on, at some other time I had this. Here we go. 4 plus 2. Now I could do this one, right, if I had these dice. And once you've used it twice, it comes down here and now becomes part of the Book of Comets. You can place this comet somewhere on one of these, getting another bonus that you get. Once the book fills up, you get to 1 victory point. This over here is for 3 or 4 players only. All right, so I could say move my book, open, right? Move my book or a number of my books 3. So I could come over here and go, oh, I'm going to move this book 1 and this book 1 and this book 1. And say I can do all 3 of those actions. So you do have turns that get you these chains that are going on.
And sometimes yours don't give you anything. So like on this card, for example, only the top 2 rows are going to have anything. The other parts are going to be blank.
Exactly.
But you'd still have to move on to that spot if you had a 3 and you were trying to move to something else.
Definitely. Now, let's talk a little bit about the Inquisition. There are cards or observations that give you an Inquisitor. Those Inquisitors start down in the cellar, because they're bad people. They start down in the cellar. Okay? And then those aren't affecting you yet, but once you get these piled up, unfortunately, at the end of the game, if I kept them here, this would be -8 points per Inquisitor down here because they are judging me tremendously. So what I'm going to be looking for are places where, like right up here on my board or with this action here, where it's the Inquisitor hood with an arrow pointing to the right. So if I do that, I can move one of these over to the right. But I also can do that by spending over here 3 of the quadrants, and now I can move either 1 twice or 2 of them 1 time, spending here. If I move them at all, I have to look and see where I've moved in the total value of all the Inquisitors in my cellar, and I subtract, because this is my reputation area with the church. And right now, it is not good, because -2, -1, I'm going to have to move down 1, 2, 3 here in reputation. But on a subsequent turn, say I had moved it and then moved 2 more. Now I've got 2 things here, and now I'm going to go up 1 for each one. So I'm getting my reputation improved, and at the end of the game, any that is over here is going to be worth 1 point. Along with that, we have our astronomers, and as I said, we have these free actions that are at the top of each astronomer if you just want to play the basic non-advanced game. But then each of the astronomers, the non-advanced, already pretty advanced, have a special power that they have. And so, for example, Johannes Kepler, he has this extra token, and at the start of the game, I take one of my basic ones out that's over here, and I put it in there, and now I'm able to do some manipulation of these tiles whenever I trigger this specific action. Shelley's,
so let's see, I have...
you have Copernicus.
And his special action is that he has some ways to adjust the things that happen in the university in the cards.
In the books here in the library.
So I can cover up things and change them to be something different. So perhaps I want to go up in the university, or I want to get one of those little squares, right?
Right. Or yeah. Say she doesn't want to have that. That annoying guy right there.
That gives me another one of the Inquisitors.
Exactly. So maybe she comes in here and does this. So
I
now
can cover up things, or I can put them on blank spots. It's up to me. But the other thing it gives me is a nice place where I can put one of these.
One of the comets.
Once they've been used, and then when they
instead of going in here,
I can go onto mine, which allows me to take two of my Inquisitors down 2 spots.
Yes, each one down 2
So
spots.
that's a really powerful one.
Definitely
you
want
tend
to set that
to wait and not move them down until you can move down them a bunch.
Right, because if they move at all, then you have to trigger the movement of the reputation.
negative bits
If
that
they
are
just
gonna
stay
happen.
in the same place for one particular round, you don't do the Inquisitor action at all.
Which is nice.
Yes, exactly. So you play until the deck of observation cards runs out. Once the draw deck is completely gone, you finish the round that you're currently in, and then everybody has one more turn, and then that's the end of the game, and you score the university, and you score all of the possible points from the Inquisitors, and that's the end of the game. Whew. So, what do you think?
This is a heavy one. It's a great game.
It is a great game.
It's such a good think.
Yeah.
And you're able to do a lot of things, but you want to do so many things.
Well, you're trying to work on those chaining ones, right? Where you go, okay, I can do this, and then I can use those quadrants to make this happen so I can get an extra die, and then I can do the observation that I've also set up, and that observation then gives me this thing over here. And yeah, I love when you can set up and you can do like 5 things instead of just the 2 that you've got.
Well, and the order in which you do these actions is super important, so you're trying to figure out what's the best way, because this one says, oh, you get to raise a blue, but if you don't have a blue die,
right?
So then maybe you're going to go get a blue die to do that,
right?
Or maybe you're going to go up here at the top, get a different color die, not worry about that, and do where you move your Inquisition.
Your Inquisitors over, exactly, right? Yeah.
It's in which one should you flip over?
Yeah.
Or should you not flip over any?
Right. Forgo
because you really need to get other actions over here. And you can't do, because of the way it rotates, you won't be able to do the one next to it. So because when you move it
if you move it past one, you're not going to be able to do that one, because even though it then slides right into thing, you have to move this 1 to 3 spaces every time.
So if you wanted to do the one that was right before it, you can't ever do that.
Well, you can't. You have to go all the way back around.
Yeah, but then that would take you quite a bit of, because you can only
couple
move
actions at least. Yeah.
Because you can only move 3 at most, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's interesting to try to figure out how many to move, because all of them are good.
Right.
But order of things matter.
There are a lot of possible actions. One of the things that we forgot when we played the first time is that when you're doing an observation, you can do 1 major observation or up to 2 for the of the constellations, the ones where you're just placing your token onto the card and the card stays
there. So you're paying only one die compared to blending 2.
Exactly.
And they're usually a lot less as well.
Right. There are some good points out there, but oftentimes if it's bigger points, then you're going to be getting those Inquisitors, and you're going to have to deal with those too. So there's this interesting, back and forth as you've got it. You're trying to compete. We had a game this last time that was within 1 point.
But the other ones were really close.
Yeah, but I mean, those are the first one is a learning game and we always say that because I'm the reader and teacher of the game the first time, that Shell is going to, I have an advantage in that regard, starting off.
I have an advantage too, because you can tell me what I should do. I'm confused. But
there is a little bit of that, but I really like this game.
Oh, it's fantastic.
I think it's a really interesting design.
Oh my gosh.
There's a lot going on.
This is a big game, but it's worth it, and it is thematic, and you don't really feel like you can't do anything. True. You just can't always do, maybe you might not choose to do your optimal action, but you can always figure out something to do.
Definitely.
Because it's only 1, 2, or 3 movements of the telescope, and you have to do one of those, and then you just have to choose the order in which you do them. And then you do all the consequences related to that. Yeah,
it makes me that much more enthused to look at SETI and Tea Garden, which are the other 2 games that this designer was able to release.
This is incredible. This is this is first
time published designs.
And this is an amazing game. I don't think there's any flaws or problems in it at all.
No, I really like it.
There's nothing like we have a caveat here or this or that.
Nothing.
It's a great game.
Yeah. So that is Galileo Galilei from 1 to 4 players, ages 13 plus. Plays in, it says 60 minutes, probably a little bit more, especially with more players. I think we got our last play in about 60 minutes in a 2-player game.
Okay, and we're pretty quick.
Yeah, we're pretty quick. All right. That'll do it for this week. Remember, you can give us a thumbs up, subscribe, sponsor the podcast at patreon.com/GarrettsGames, and check down into the show notes where we have a link to a list of games that no longer fit on our shelves but belong on your table. Have a great week. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you next time. Bye.